Hello, class. The jump from theory to practice is always one of good conversation. In Module 9, our goals were to apply an ethical theory to an organization that you are familiar with, as well as distinguish between your personal and organizational ethics. In our discussion this week, I noted that the consequentialist and utilitarian perspectives came up. Given the context of the environments that one is in, it makes complete sense that these approaches were mentioned. Interestingly, consequentialism is not overly concerned with the relative value of an action, but more so that any action, good or bad, will result in a state of being, or a consequence. In many ways, it has more to do with causation rather than ascribing worth to actions. Hence, the integration of a utilitarian perspective, whereby the biggest implication is in seeking the benefit of the majority. This is where combining the two become really interesting. For example, does seeking the greater good, however that is defined, negate the way it takes to achieve that result? What about an action that is taken that may result in the sacrifices in the short term to achieve the objectives in the long term? Regardless, ethics plays a big part in everything we do, and while it's interesting to consider, the biggest test comes in how we apply these to our situations. Now, over the past few weeks, we've gone into some very deep philosophical conversations, and I want to bring us back to our context, adult learning. What does all this have to do with the ethics of adult learning? More specifically, what does ethical practice look like for us? Because ethics deals with the issues of morality, we as adult education leaders have to consider the moral implications of things like our content. What is permissible and what content seeks the most good? What about in the way that we craft our lessons and communicate instruction? Are there limits to how we go about imparting knowledge to adult students? Once we have the personal dialogue around ethics, we consider how our own ethical values align with the organizations that we are a part of. Are they in alignment with each other? And what if they are not? Interestingly, a fun exercise would have been to think about and discuss examples where the personal and the organizational are in complete alignment, and critically address what it takes to sustain that level of congruency. I do hope, however, that you will consider integrating that question into your last assignment, which I want to address. Your last assignment, which is due at the end of next week, will be, in essence, a comprehensive ethical evaluation. You will address, in detail, an organization and, using the ethical guide checklist that we have used in Modules 7 and 8, make suggestions for improvement. Remember that the checklist is only the beginning, and that simply filling out the checklist and providing a short answer isn't enough. I encourage you to go deeper in your analysis and ask why you think that answer was what it was, and then determine if those answers are consistent with what the research says. In making your suggestions, be sure to include why you think those suggestions for improvement are valid. In other words, make a case, according to the research, for why your plan will work. You all know your organizations quite well, so it'll be a fun read in greater detail about them. Again, the paper is due at the end of next week, but it will take some time to gather what information you need about your context to write about it. The assignment description is online, and of course, I want you to write all this in good APA style, with the cover page, abstract, the text, and references. Well, that's all for this module. I'll look forward to seeing you online.